Good morning, everyone. The goal of today is to record some video that's going to help you not only get started, but remember what the requirements are for the 7-layer assignment. So this is the very first assignment of the second semester. It deals with form. Form is a three-dimensional illusion of a shape done on paper in this case. And so I'm going to provide to you 5 basic forms as ideas. Now, you're not restricted by those, so if you want to go on and create some more complex forms, that's certainly acceptable. But as you can see, I've listed them here at the top of this sketch. So the 5 basic forms that you are allowed to choose from for this assignment are sphere, cylinder, box, cone, and pyramid. Okay, so art's kind of interesting in that there isn't one perfect answer, but conceptually we can all arrive to a similar or thematic project by following some guidelines. So for this assignment, you have these 5 basic forms. We have sphere, cylinder, box, cone, and pyramid. And I'm asking you to choose 3 of them to create your project. So you can see I've circled 3. These just happen to be my choices. I chose a sphere, box, and a cone. So again, in the second semester, we're going to take some basic ideas, those ideas being the elements of art: line, shape, color, texture, value, form, and space. And we're going to start applying some rules in the second semester, which are really guidelines. All of you know that in art, sometimes artists have this burning desire and purpose to only break the rules. So it's your job to just kind of use them as guides and understand that they exist. So those rules are called the principles of art. So these are rules on how artists organize the elements of art. So again, one of those elements being form. So this entire assignment is about how do you organize form in a good way. All right. So 2 of those principles are balance and repetition. In regard to the other ones that are not necessarily our focus, the principles of art are rhythm, movement, balance, proportion, variety, emphasis, harmony, and unity. So it's really important that we understand that they exist and that we're able to have some academic discourse when we run into problems that we need to solve. All right. So this is a basic sketch of where we're going. The assignment's title is called 7-layer. And so what that means is that visually, it's our intent and purpose to create 7 layers. So if I'm looking at this drawing as it is, it looks to me like this cone perhaps is on the very top because I've erased the lines of the ones that are behind it. And so this one is taking the first layer. If I erased this portion of the circle that's going inside of the one in front of it, then this one might be on the second layer and so forth. So then in the end, just given the nature of the title of this assignment, the goal is to have at least 7 layers. Okay, so this is going to be a fairly long part 1 video because I want you guys to be able to stop it, rewind it if you want to, go back and hear anything again that you're not really sure about. And then I also want you to understand that this is a sketch, so this border has not been measured, and it's a requirement that you measure your border with a 1-inch margin all the way around. So in addition to that requirement for the second semester, you need to have your name signed. You need to have the title of the work, which in this case is your 7-layer assignment, the date or year, and then you need to write down whatever medium it is that you made out of it. Okay, so this is a title for a piece of artwork, and notice it's right justified. The goal was not to go beyond this margin here. I plan on using colored pencil and graphite, so as opposed to write graphite and colored pencil, I went ahead and I wrote mixed media. So if you only do yours in pencil, then you'll want to put graphite on paper, or if you only complete this in colored pencil, you'll put colored pencil on paper. All right, so I'll make an entire second video about how to measure the 1-inch border because I don't want this video to get too long. And I want to start out with this assignment all over again. So we're not going to hop on our final paper right away. What we're going to do is we're going to think about number one, which of the forms are we going to choose? So again, I'm going to choose sphere, box, and cone. You choose the 3 that you want to choose, and if you want to go on and make some more complicated ones, that's totally fine. All right, so I'm going to get a blank white paper and start over. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to practice those lateral lines, just improving my coordination. Okay, I rotated my paper. I would suggest that you do that. Get good at drawing a line in one direction. Most people draw away or out from their midline, so most people draw straight lines best that way. You might draw them better towards your midline, I'm not sure. And then another point is be prepared. You know, you don't want to have to be sharpening pencils the whole entire time you're doing this assignment. I have 2 ready. So if you find that one's kind of scratchy or it's not really behaving the way that you want it to behave, just switch pencils instead of having to destroy your rhythm. So, all right, so I've established a border. Again, this is not 1 inch, but it gives me an idea of where I want to go. Okay, so I'm going to start with cone. Again, I told you I chose cone, box, and sphere. There were 5. Okay, the other 2 that I did not choose are pyramid and cylinder. Now, some of you might love to draw cylinders. In that case, choose it. Okay, I want you to be happy. I want you to do something that you like. Okay, so when you first start, I will mention that drawing the viewer's attention right to the center of the page is not recommended. It's also not recommended that you direct the viewer's vision off of the page and not bring it back. So we're going to be talking about movement a little bit, but when you first start, I don't want you to get too critical about where it is that you put something. But I'm just going to put one of those forms right here on the left corner. Okay, so I told you earlier I was going to start with cone. I think I'll start with sphere. So I'm going to draw a medium-sized sphere in this left corner just so that I can start playing with space a little bit and what's consuming that space. So I would say this is a medium-sized sphere. Okay, right now it's a circle because it has no value. Eventually it will be a 3-dimensional looking sphere because I'm going to shade it to make it look like it's 3D. Okay, so now I have to create what's called balance. So I want you to think about this like you have a top half of your paper, you have a bottom half of your paper, you have a left side, and you have a right side. So I've got a medium-sized sphere on the bottom left. Okay, if I put the same size sphere on the top right, this paper would have formal balance. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to draw a similar size one here so we can just kind of visualize that together. So these 2 circles look or appear to have similar weight. So they look like they take about approximately the same amount of space. Obviously this one's a little smaller. I just want to show you how you can create balance on the left and on the right, top and bottom. So I've alternated them really. So I put one on the left and then on the top right. So that helped me balance my page. But I didn't have to do one of the very same size over there. I could have split it up in smaller pieces. So I will overlap this one. And again, I'm just working really intuitively. I'm just looking at the page going, okay, where am I going to put something else? And I'm inherently working with this other word that I want you to think about, which is repetition. Repetition is a principle of art, okay? And it helps us fill space and it helps us move the viewer's eyes. So mentally, when I'm looking at this as a viewer, I'm like, okay, there's a circle, there's a circle, there's a circle. Okay, so it just helps move their eyes around the page. So I've created a new problem here. I put 2 circles on the left and I have 1 on the right. So as opposed to being so direct and straightforward, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to draw circles, but I'm going to see if I can get them to add up to the same amount of visual weight. So on the right, not exactly on the right, but on the right, I'm going to draw a few circles. Sorry about that bell, guys. It's just kind of one of those things about digital learning. The bells still happen even though you're not here. So, all right, so I've got 2 smaller circles here. I need to take a look at this and decide whether or not I think it looks visually balanced. And I would say for the most part, right and left it does. It's kind of weird that there's nothing in the center, nothing at all. So I think I'm going to address that issue right now by putting a very large circle that continues off my page. Okay, so notice I have a placemat. I would definitely recommend that if you have an old newspaper or something, have a placemat so that if you need to go outside the boundaries, your circle doesn't look squished and weird. So now at least I have something in the middle of my paper, and again, I need to balance that somehow. So I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a rather large circle since I drew something kind of big. And again, this one's exiting the borders, not a big deal. Okay, so it's good to have that habit of not being afraid to exit the page, because we don't want our composition to look like it's squished and trapped inside of the page. So I'm feeling pretty good about this balance. I don't think I'm done exploring with circles yet. Just as the artist, I don't feel finished with that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another one over here on the right. Okay, so again, if I do something on the right, and I might want to consider that it's also near the top, then I probably want to do something near the bottom left, just to help out with that visual balance. So I'm noticing that I have kind of a curved line happening with these circles here. So if you're noticing that you're controlling the viewer's eyes that way, you might want to keep going with it if it's good, and if it's bad, redirect it. All right, so I think I've drawn enough circles and that you guys are getting the point with that. So I'd like to move on and draw some cones. All right, so I'm going to encourage you guys to turn your paper when you work on something like this. So I created a new problem here while I was working. I actually turned my paper and then you guys couldn't see the whole paper, so I'm going to take a book. This is that book that I told you I was inspired by listening to our Netflix shows, Abstract. The artist suggested that, you know, I read this certain book, The Discovery of Slowness, so I went ahead and checked it out with the public library. So hopefully you guys are inspired by what people say as well. So I turned my paper just because I didn't want to get too stuck seeing it from the same direction the whole time. And I'm going to start drawing a cone. Okay, so I'm just going to slap a cone right here in the center, and I don't even care if it's on the top, bottom, middle, or back yet, because I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with that. So a cone has a curved bottom and a pointed top. And a cone's also really interesting because if you think about the axis in the center, it tapers on one end, and so it really directs the viewer's eyes in a particular direction. So I definitely don't want someone to look at my work and their eye goes off the left side of the page and it never comes back. So I think what I'll do, just as a simple way to fix that right now, is I'll overload the right side with some cones and I'll point some coming back. So then that way, if their eye is traveling this way, then I bring it back with another little cone. So in addition to that little cone, I think I'll put another one here. Again, I'm not too concerned about the border just yet. This is a practice page. This is not even my final. I would imagine you guys would practice a lot. Okay, you might practice 2 or 3 times before you actually put it on your final paper. It's a really simple concept. If you practice at something, you typically get better at it. It's not an accident. So what I've done here is I've directed the viewer's eyes this way. Again, I'm using repetition. I'm bringing them back. Okay, I brought them back kind of strong to the middle. So I'm feeling like I don't want people's eyes to go to the middle and then stop. So even here, I accidentally did that. So I need to solve that problem somehow and get their eyes to move out of the center. So let's see. How about I point them over here? I haven't pointed anything that way in a while. So I'm going to overlap a cone and I'm going to point them this way. And again, I'm exploring repetition. I want to put some small things. I haven't put very many small things in here yet, so I'm going to put a little grouping of little small cones. And again, I'm just working kind of intuitively, solving problems as they come. I'm getting an awful lot of small objects in this bottom left. I don't know if that's good or bad yet, but just because I've acknowledged it, I'm going to add another cone here. Okay, so again, the project, actually the whole second semester is about exploring composition, you know, how do you organize things? And we're focusing on balance through the use of repetition. So we're picking 3. I picked cone, sphere, and box. The other 2 options were pyramid and cylinder. And you're exploring them through this very simple layering assignment. And when you're finished with it, you're going to be super proud of it because you're going to go and shade or apply value with color to all of them, and you're going to select which ones are on top and bottom. All right, so I'm really trying hard not to make the videos super long, and this one's already 15 minutes long, and I haven't even got to a box yet. So for the box, I'm going to go ahead and just start with the front side of it, and I'll use a rectangle because squares seem to demand perfection. So since I'm not perfect, I'll stick with a rectangle, and I'm going to put a rectangle, I think, right here. So I'm just going to draw the whole rectangle because I don't know if it's on top or bottom. And if I start getting confused by my layers, I can solve them, but right now I'm okay. All right, so I put a rectangle there. Let's see, I think I'll put a rectangle right over here. It's 2. Now, just on a note of design, usually designs look better if they have odd numbers of things. I don't want you to have to rely on counting like to, you know, 11 or 9 or something like that. But if you are considering it, you should definitely consider that designs typically look better with odd numbers of things. Okay, so I have a portion of a box here. It's interesting that if you take away some of a box, the side of it looks like a triangle. So the boxes and the cones both have points that could be triangular if you really were to dissect them. So you do want to maybe consider that as you're drawing along. All right, so I've got the fronts of boxes, but really those are just shapes. They're not forms yet because they have no 3-dimensional sides. So I'll just pick one. Let's see, how about I pick this first one that I drew, and I'll try to turn this one into a 3-dimensional box since you guys know how to do that from last semester. So I will use this top point of it just as a reference point, like a vanishing point. And I'm going to take what I know from first semester, and I'm going to connect diagonals from the corners of this box. All right, so this is getting a bit confusing, so I think it's kind of time to solve it. So I connected diagonals. I don't want those to continue all the way there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the front side of the box, just like in first semester. I'm going to find that side, and I'm going to find this side. And now I want to decide, okay, which things are on top of which. And so I need to decide how important this corner is, and in this case, I would say that corner is pretty important. And so what I'll do is make a decision about this tiny circle. I actually think I'm just going to completely delete it because I think this corner of this box is really important, and I wanted to have a box for sure. I think I'll just move that guy right over here. Okay, so now if I want the box behind that circle without eliminating an important part, then I have a solution that works out pretty well. So I have this circle here. I think I'm going to shrink it. Okay, so again, I think you guys will go through these issues as an artist as well. Just deciding where you want to put things and how you want to put things. And I really want to encourage you to be okay with fixing things. I feel like in your generation especially, everybody wants it to be perfect right away. And that's unfortunate because I think you should be encouraged to make all the necessary mistakes, especially when you're drawing, to get to the correct answer, the one that you're happy with. Okay, so I've got this corner here. I moved those 2 circles. They're kind of near where I originally put them, but I just made some adjustments. Now I don't need the rest of the diagonal here, so I'm going to get rid of that. The box looks three-dimensional because I applied what I learned from first semester. So I'm looking at all this going on here, and I want to do something fun. I want this cone to go into this box and look like it comes out the front side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a flat line right here, just so it looks like this point kind of came through this box. So everything inside of this, I'm going to get rid of it. I don't need these diagonals anymore because I'm going to use the viewer's eyes to control what's happening here. And I'm going to have this cone entering that side of the box and exiting the other side. So it's almost like this cone just came up to this box and stabbed right through it, right where it was on the page. So this cone has to be on top of the other stuff just so the viewer's eyes can be controlled with that idea, okay? So I came into the box, I just stopped it with a flat line that made sense, and then I exited the box. Okay, so then there's this whole curve from this big circle here. I'll get rid of this curve here. That way it's not confusing. And then I have this weird thing happening here. So when things stop at corners that don't belong to the objects, that can be an issue. So I want to increase the size of this circle just because I'm noticing that that little stop there looks weird. And solve the problems as they come. Okay, so I'm noticing it would hit that corner as well, so I'll adjust as needed, all right? So if you find that you squish a circle and it doesn't look very circular, resketching it is definitely advised, a good idea. Okay, so yeah, that definitely needed to be resketched. All right, so hopefully this video as a part 1 demonstration is really helpful to you as far as how to get started. That's one example of a three-dimensional box. I feel like I should do one more before I let you go, okay, because I did draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. So finding a vanishing point in this case is kind of haphazard and random because they could continue to the same vanishing point, but it's not necessary. You don't have to continue them to the same point. So I'm going to take this box and use that as an example. So I used the corner of this rectangle here for the vanishing point of this box. I think I'll use just the corner of my border for the vanishing point of this box here. Okay, so I can continue diagonals towards that corner. And then find the sides based on the rules that I learned from last semester. So obviously it was really important to do that learning last semester. And then I'll just let this cone, this little small cone, be right on top of that box visually. That's the layering part. The assignment's called the 7-layer assignment. And then I think I want to let this circle be here as well. So this little medium-sized circle, I'm going to have that one be on top of that box as well. And then I'll have this little cone at the bottom be on top. So let's count that real quick. We have 1. These are actually on the same layer. So 1, 2, 3. If I erase these big parts of this circle, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. All right, so let's put this cone on top. And I would say I still have like about 4 layers committed to this assignment, and the assignment is the 7-layer assignment. So it's important that your final product looks really good, okay? We are going to do shading and coloring on all of these things when they're done, but when you're first organizing it, you really should just be concerned about balancing, using repetition, and of course selecting 3 of the forms. All right, 24 minutes is a long starting video, but I really hope it helps you guys so that you can refer back to it as you're creating these 7 layers for your assignment. All right, so good luck. Again, this is going to be due in about a week, so let's go ahead and get started on it.